Hello, and welcome to another video. Did I look cool? We soared past 100 subscribers last week. I appreciate ya. And now we're on to our real goal of 420. Oh, solid. Today we're going to talk about games we used to play as children, or if you prefer, the ways we entertained ourselves and kept sane during those first 8 grueling years of grade school. To give you a small spoiler, it was a bit of an evolution from year to year, so stick around if you want to see that change. I grew up a little weird, so I'm hoping everyone can still relate to my experiences. I'm sure they can, but just in case, let me set the scene. Up until the 4th grade, I was weirdly frozen in time. And no, I don't mean my family rode around in a horse and buggy or churned our own butter. It was more like we had an N64 long after the PS2 took off, and we had dial-up internet years after high-speed was commonplace. And it was like a 20-minute drive to do anything interesting. We were living in what you might call the country, not the suburbs. This created an interesting and ragtag group of friends because you just had to hang out with whoever was available. Age ranges and personality types varied wildly. I had 2 main sets of friends, Matt and Mike, and Justin and Jordan. And before you ask, yes, that's 2 sets of brothers. How could you tell? Was it the fact that their names started with the same letters? Dead giveaway. No one in this set of friends was the same age except for me and Matt, and until now I left out one major wrench in the works. Matt and Mike were not allowed to hang out with Justin and Jordan, and that was some bullshit. The only time I remember them being anywhere near each other was during a talent show in a neighborhood girl's backyard, and that's a story for another day. She had an entire dance performance set to Mambo number 5. Anyway, now that you know the setup, join me as I track the arc most of our forms of childhood entertainment took from imagination to mischief. The earliest forms of self-entertainment that I can remember all involve roleplay in some capacity.
With imagination, I can be anything I want.
There were the classics like Kids Playing House, or Doctor if you were raised fucked up, but then there were the more abstract games as well that you made up at complete random, yet everyone seemingly understood and agreed to the rules of. When I was younger, my dad would make me toy guns out of blocks of wood. He'd cut out the shape of a hunting rifle and then paint them brown and black to look a bit more realistic. I had a small collection of these things, and me and my friends loved to play with them.
Welcome aboard, Squidward. You've just set sail on the SS Imagination.
There were such convoluted rules as you only get 6 bullets in a magazine, and when you run out, you gotta pull a fruit roll-up out of your back pocket to reload. And my dad never got around to making us fake magazines. We had to improvise. Since there were obviously a lack of projectiles for evidence of hits, you were considered out when the other person would get louder and angrier than you in the whining war of who got who. Real open and shut cases. When you were finally declared out, you'd have to run off to the blue shed in the distance and touch it for 37 seconds before you could come back into the game. You get the idea. It was all random and insanely specific shit like that. On the less violent side of our young imaginations, we'd also do a lot of man shit, like pretend we were mechanics. I remember one specific instance of this with my younger stepbrothers, Zach and Noah. We had all our bikes parked in different parts of the driveway, claiming them as our respective shops. And I don't remember the lead into this next part of the story, but it ends with my younger stepbrother suddenly declaring, "I'm a real hard ass," obviously imitating something he had heard on TV. I decided to be the douchey older brother, like I probably also learned on TV, and I went to go tell on him. What a prick. Before I could get to the door, though, he ran and blocked my way and started crying, begging me not to do it. And I looked over to my other brother, with a sly James Bond grin and said, "Go around back." And he fucking did it. He sprinted around the house and ratted out his own flesh and blood for me. What a monster I was.
Will you two shut up?
There were also the obvious fads for my age group like Yu-Gi-Oh!, Pokemon, and Beyblade, but they all demand their own videos someday, so for now I'll sum them up in one sentence. We used to pretend to be the characters as we played the games at recess for a couple of weeks, and then all of the associated paraphernalia would seemingly get banned at every school in the district shortly thereafter. That finishes the coverage for the typical sort of kid stuff, but now let's dive into the more personal things that are potentially very cringy, and I can't say for sure if anyone else did. By the way, if I'm gonna share this, I better see some of your embarrassing stories in the comments, so get to it. Me and my friend Zach, not my brother, different guy, would play with wrestling figures a lot. And you'd think that would amount to just having wrestling matches with them, but no, idiot. I just finished telling you, we're entering the cringe zone. We would roleplay these wrestlers' entire lives. We'd use model cars to drive them to and from the arena that the wrestling shows were in. We'd use tech decks to pretend they were professional skateboarders on the side. And we'd use the female wrestling dolls and pretend they were our girlfriends. Jesus Christ, we went deep.
Oh boy, this beats TV by a long shot.
We did also do the more typical kid thing of playing with dinky cars on this iconic cityscape rug, but that just wasn't enough for us. We had to evolve it. Hey, while we're here, did Americans call them dinky cars too, or was that like one of those things I didn't know was a Canadian term? It feels like it might be. Let me know. We did hold on to those years with a pretty tight grasp as we got older. When we were transferring into our more mischievous forms of play, we did everything in our power to keep the past alive as long as possible. We all got PS2s and copies of The Simpsons Road Rage to continue our car-based roleplay. We would pick out houses on the free roam map and everything, but it couldn't last forever. We eventually found online games like Rainbow Six Lockdown and Battlefield 2, and we were corrupted for the rest of our lives. I really do think this is what triggered a change in all of us, because you can only scream at so many people over a headset in your squeaky voice before it starts to affect you in real life too.
Are you trying to say I have no imagination? I have more imagination in one tentacle than you two have in your whole bodies.
Now we get into some destructive territory here, as our young brains tell us it's no longer cool to be role-playing. Well, until that kicks back around in your mid-20s and you decide to start playing D&D. You may have gone to the extremes I'm about to talk about, or you may have gone higher. Every city's different. My city was kind of a wild one, so gauge your rebellious memories accordingly. The first signs of graduating from our roleplay sessions took place in the dead of winter, where we would hide in ditches and then pop up to huck snowballs at the windshields of cars. This game led to two of the scariest moments in my entire life. The first was accidentally hitting my mom's car with a group of friends, and the fear you experience in a moment like that is something else. It's like there's electricity coursing through your body and just holding you in place. Fucking horrifying.
Attention! We have you surrounded! Come out with your hands up! What do they want with me?
The second was when I was alone and hit a stranger's car, and he slammed on the brakes and pulled into my driveway, because of course I was stupid enough to do this in front of my own house. He got out and started screaming obscenities at my second grade self. He taught me a lot of new words. You think it's fucking funny to throw fucking snowballs at goddamn cars? I'm gonna break your legs! Listen, I told you it was a wild city. This winter of change was obviously only the beginning. Over the next few years, we would gradually develop into worse and worse things. Eventually, we were jumping off roofs, breaking into buildings, playing full contact football with no pads, and roaming around the mall being general menaces. And some of us, not me, Mom, would even be shoplifting. Yikes. I think the most fun part about that evolution, though, was the sneaking into movies, although I might be a little biased, seeing as I ended up being a film nerd. You'd get your parents to drop you off, and you'd tell them you were going to see a movie later that night, but then you just go to the theater right away and see a movie in the early afternoon, and never walk back past the ticket guy when it's over. So you bounce from theater to theater, from movie to movie, and if you're lucky, the teenagers that work there don't care enough about their job to do a head count. So you just saw an entire bill of movies for the price of one in a single Saturday. Such good times. And that's it. That's the end of the video. Thank you for watching. I didn't go too much into detail about the more dangerous side of the evolution like I did for the roleplay side, because a lot of those stories were taking place on the border of my teenage years, and trust me, I'm gonna talk about all of that in extreme detail someday. If you're new to the channel, why not subscribe, and I'll post another video for you next week. If you can't wait that long, watch that one in the meantime. Bye-bye!